The screen is dark. A faint heartbeat echoes. Slowly, the outline of a stone tool emerges, lit by flickering firelight. What separates you, sitting in comfort, surrounded by the architecture of civilization, from a fragile figure crouched on an African plain 2.5 million years ago? What tether binds us to them? Homo habilis, the handyman, whose hands once shaped the first stones into tools. Do you imagine them as beasts, crude and primitive, or as kin whose silence still whispers in the marrow of our bones? They were neither gods nor animals. They were the first to carve thought into stone, to touch survival with intention. And though their voices are lost to the dust, their legacy lives within us, in the fire of our endurance, in the hunger for meaning, in the endless struggle to exist. Dawn breaks over the African savanna. The light is thin, the air heavy with cool mist. From the shadows of a small grove, a figure stirs. His brow is low, his arms long, his gait both awkward and purposeful. He is Homo habilis. Around him, a small band awakens. 7 souls bound by necessity, not ideology. The world is vast and merciless. Every dawn is both promise and threat. Hunger gnaws before thought. Fear precedes philosophy. Yet already in their rough hands, something revolutionary exists: stone. The handyman bends over a sharp fragment, striking one rock against another. Sparks of sound echo. The rhythm of intention. He chips carefully, splitting edges sharp enough to cut flesh, crack bone. To us it seems simple, almost childlike. To him, it is nothing less than magic, the power to reshape nature, to command survival. The group sets out barefoot on duet grass. Children cling to their mothers. Eyes scan the horizon, every rustle a warning. The savanna is alive with predators: lions, leopards, saber-toothed cats. For Homo habilis, the world is a perpetual gamble. Between being hunter and prey, you find a carcass, a wild beast brought down by lions in the night. The lions have fed, but scraps remain. Homo habilis approaches cautiously. Vultures circle. The smell is ripe, sharp, intoxicating. They use their stone tools to cut, to scrape, to dig into marrow. For the first time, flesh yields not just 2 teeth, but 2 intention. Protein fuels their growing brains. Marrow strengthens the body, and slowly, imperceptibly, the mind begins to awaken.
Oh.
But danger is never far. A hyena appears, snarling, laughing its harsh chorus into the air. The group retreats, clutching what they can. Survival is compromise. Never victory, only endurance. By midday, the heat presses like a hand. They move toward a riverbed. Women gather tubers, roots, and berries, their eyes trained to distinguish poison from nourishment. Children watch and learn silently. Knowledge is not spoken but carried in gestures, repeated in survival's choreography. Every act is teaching. At the water, crocodiles lurk unseen. Thirst wrestles with fear. They drink quickly, always watchful. The river is life, but also death, as all things were in that world of edges. As night falls, silence deepens. The savanna hums with hidden life, insects, owls, distant roars. The small group gathers close. They do not yet know how to summon fire, but if lightning has struck a tree and left behind flame, they guard it with reverence. Around its glow, they huddle, their faces flickering with shadows. Here, perhaps the first myths are born, not in words, but in gestures, in the wide eyes of children watching sparks rise into the stars. Fire is warmth, protection, mystery. It is the first theater, the first temple. Around it, they are more than animals. They are something becoming human. And so, a day ends as it began, with fear, hunger, and survival, but also with memory, community, and the faint stirrings of thought. Picture them, fragile, mortal, uncertain. Yet in every heartbeat, in every sharpened stone, in every trembling night beside the fire, they carried the seed of us. For we are not built from comfort, nor from ease. We are built from endurance. We are built from them. In the silence of their world, we find echoes of our own. They did not name themselves Homo habilis, nor did they speak of evolution, progress, or destiny. Yet in their fragile lives, we see a mirror, reflection of truths that philosophers millennia later would attempt to capture in words. Rousseau once imagined the state of nature, a time before civilization bound us with laws, politics, and property. For him, that state was not mere brutality, but innocence, a life of simplicity and struggle where man was free. To look at Homo habilis is to glimpse this raw freedom, unshaped by kings or kingdoms. Their law was hunger, their contract survival. They had no rulers but the sun, and no prisons but the night. Perhaps in their silence lay the purity Rousseau longed for, a life before the chains of culture, when survival itself was meaning enough. Yet Nietzsche would challenge us to see something more. In these early beings, stumbling through savanna grasses, wielding stones against bone and claw, he might glimpse the essence of strength. For Nietzsche, life is not comfort but struggle, not safety but becoming. These ancestors were not weak for their fear. They were strong for their persistence. Every sharpened edge, every cautious step toward a carcass, every trembling hand guarding fire was an act of will. A declaration that existence is worth the fight. To endure was to affirm life itself, long before the word philosophy was ever whispered. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, would remind us that endurance is the core of our nature. He wrote that we are born to suffer pain, to meet it with dignity, to carry the weight of mortality with calm. Homo habilis lived this truth not as theory, but as necessity. They did not write meditations. Their meditations were carved into stone flakes and lived in silent choices, to stay close to one another, to risk for food, to guard what little warmth could be found. Their very breath was stoicism in motion. Long before Rome, long before empires rose and fell, and Lao Tzu, quiet sage of the Tao, might smile at these ancestors. Wandering in harmony with a world they did not yet try to conquer, they flowed with the rhythms of nature, drinking when they could, retreating when danger came, moving like water around obstacles. Their wisdom was not spoken, but embodied. They did not resist the flow of the world. They bent with it, survived within it, and thus endured. Perhaps this was the first Tao, lived without name or scripture, the way of life itself. In their existence, we see a paradox that philosophers forever circle. That meaning is not beyond us, but within the act of survival itself. The child who watches sparks rise into the sky may not name God or destiny, but in those sparks is the first stir of awe, the first taste of mystery. The woman digging for roots may not ponder virtue, but in the teaching of her child's eyes is the first glimpse of tradition, of memory, of continuity. The man striking stone upon stone may not speak of reason, but in that act is the first articulation of thought, an intention turned into matter. What is philosophy if not the endless refinement of these primal truths? That life is fragile, that fear is real, that hunger shapes us, that community sustains us, that endurance is our deepest inheritance. And so when we, with our skyscrapers and satellites, look back at these small, fragile beings on the savannah, we are not looking at strangers. We are looking at the silent philosophers of existence, teachers without words, sages without names, who showed through their living that to endure is to be human, and to be human is to seek, to hope, to survive. What then do their lives whisper to us, across the abyss of millions of years? We imagine ourselves far removed, clothed in technology, guided by the glow of screens instead of fire. Yet our fears are not so different. Their lions are our debts, their hyenas are deadlines, their crocodiles, the silent anxieties waiting beneath the surface of our days. The savannah has shifted into concrete and steel, but the pulse within us is the same. Survival has always been our true inheritance. From them we learn the lesson of uncertainty. Every dawn carried risk, no promise of food, no assurance of safety. And yet they rose, barefoot, vulnerable, moving into the unknown. We'd awake each day into a world without guarantees. No career is certain, no relationship unshakable, no future promised. To live as they lived is to accept uncertainty as the condition of existence, and to move forward anyway. From them we learn resilience. Failed hunt did not mean despair, but persistence. A stolen carcass was not an ending, but another beginning. The human spirit was forged in these moments of loss and recovery. So too in our age. Rejection, failure, heartbreak, these are the modern hyenas that bite at our heels. Yet if we endure, if we sharpen again the stones of our will, we continue. From them we learn the strength of community. No Homo habilis survived alone. The mother who gathered roots, the hunter who cut meat, the child who learned by watching, together they formed a circle against the dark. Alone, they would perish. Together, they endured. How different are we? In a world that prizes independence, we forget that our strength has always been collective. Lean on others is not weakness, but the oldest form of survival. From them we learn attention to the real. They watched the grasses for movement, the sky for storms, the earth for tracks. Their senses were tuned not to distraction but to life. And we, in an age of constant noise, must remember how to return to silence. To listen again, not to predators on the plain, but to the subtle truths within us. The discipline of attention, born on the savannah, is still the root of wisdom. From them we learn humility. For all their skill, they were never masters of the earth. They did not conquer nature, they lived within it. They did not command the rivers or the skies. They yielded, adapted, endured. And perhaps that is the lesson most urgent for us now, that in our age of mastery and control, we must recall the humility of our ancestors, who knew that survival is never dominance but balance. Their stones were sharp but crude. Our tools are refined, glowing, digital. Yet the principle is unchanged. Every tool is an extension of intention, every invention a way to endure. The danger is not in the tools themselves, but in forgetting the humanity that holds them, to build, to shape, to imagine. These are acts inherited from Homo habilis. But to forget that endurance, humility, and community are the foundation of our survival is to lose the very gift they gave us. So let us listen to their silence. Let us feel in their trembling hands the weight of our own struggles. Their lessons are not written in books, but etched in our bones. They remind us that resilience is older than language, that cooperation is older than politics, that hope is older than faith. And if they endured with so little, what excuse have we with so much? Night has fallen again. Fire crackles, smoke rising like prayers into the black sky. Around it, the small band of Homo habilis huddles close. The children drift into sleep, their faces painted by flame, their dreams carrying the weight of a world both terrifying and magnificent. The adults remain watchful, listening to distant roars. They know the darkness holds teeth. Yet, within the circle of firelight, there is safety. Fragile, fleeting, but real. The flame becomes more than heat. It is memory, continuity, the promise of another dawn. Without knowing, they are shaping the first metaphor of humanity, that against the vast and merciless unknown, we can create light. And so, the legacy they leave us is not just tools of stone, but habits of spirit. The willingness to rise each day into uncertainty. The patience to sharpen edges against the resistance of life. The courage to face predators, visible or unseen. The tenderness to stay close to one another when night grows long. The stone tools they chipped were more than weapons. They were thoughts given form, intention hardened into matter. Each flake of rock was the beginning of philosophy, art, and science. The first sparks of fire they guarded were more than warmth. They were the first symbols, the first rituals, the first glimpses of transcendence. And now, millions of years later, we still hold those same gifts. The stone has become circuit boards, the fire has become electricity, but the gesture is unchanged. We shape, we build, we guard, we hope. In the face of fear, we still gather around our glowing lights, telling stories to remind ourselves that we are not alone. The ancestors we call Homo habilis are gone, their bones scattered, their voices vanished. Yet the silence they left behind is not emptiness, but inheritance. For in every act of endurance, every spark of imagination, every moment of resilience, they live on within us. We are the children of their trembling hands. The fire that once flickered in caves still burns in our cities, our homes, our hearts. And perhaps, when all else is stripped away, this is the truth, that we are not a species born for comfort, but for survival, for meaning, for light in the darkness. The stone is still in our hands. The fire is still in our care. What will we make of it now? The night is vast, and the stars burn above like ancient fires that no hand has ever touched. Beneath them lies the plain where our ancestors once walked, their footprints long erased by time, their voices dissolved into silence. Yet silence is not absence. It is presence of another kind, a resonance that hums through us still. To imagine them is to remember ourselves stripped bare of everything we have built. No walls, no cities, no language carved into symbols, only the body, the earth, the stone, the flame. And in that simplicity lies the core of what we are. Mortal, yes. Mortal, yes. But also enduring. Also infinite in our capacity to adapt, to imagine, to hope. We live now in towers of glass and steel, surrounded by the hum of machines, lulled into forgetting how precarious life truly is. But in our marrow, in our instincts, in the pulse of our veins, the old world still lives. The rustle of grasses, the flash of teeth in the dark, the warmth of firelight. These memories are carried in us, not as stories but as blood. The stone tools they carved were not just survival, the earth of first thoughts made tangible, the earliest whispers of intention. To lift a rock and shape it into something sharper is to declare, I will not surrender to the chaos of the world. I will answer it. I will endure. And that is what we have been doing ever since. The fire they guarded, fragile against the wind, was not just warmth, it was a vision of continuity, the refusal to let night consume everything. It was the first symbol of meaning. And we, even now, are still guardians of flame. Though our fires burn in cities, in ideas and the invisible sparks of connection that pass between us. So when you feel lost, when the weight of existence presses down and the darkness seems too vast, remember them. Remember the small band of Homo habilis, crouched in the savannah, trembling yet unbroken. Remember that you are not the child of luxury, but the child of survival. That endurance is older than despair, and hope older than fear. The story of humanity is not written in monuments or empires, but in the quiet act of rising again each day, as they did. The first stones and the first flames were only beginnings. The true legacy is us, the continuation of their will to live, to endure, to become more. The fire that once flickered in the caves of our ancestors has not gone out. It burns still, in every breath you take, in every act of courage, in every choice to continue. You are its guardian now. The question is not whether the fire will burn, but what light you will make of it.